from the sky. Shapeshifters on a hunt for a traitor they despise. Sharon saved the earth, but now she hides. Portal's mind control, they come to take her back. Cyber Force and Strykeforce, ready to attack. In a world of steel and might, we make our stand, fighting through the darkness side by side.
Welcome, everybody, to a new episode of the Unspoken Issues Podcast. We're going to get you ready again for our discussion on Cyber Force, Codename Strykeforce, opposing forces, by giving you a little bit of a introduction to the creative team and the characters. We got about 7 minutes here. If you want to skip past it, feel free to do so, and then you can get right to the discussion that myself, Dean Compton, and Matthew Price have about this two-issue story. But maybe you were like me and didn't know too much about Codename Strykeforce and the members of that team. And if that's the case, feel free to stick around and listen in. Here we go.
Before we get into today's episode, let's take a brief look at our creative team for this book and our team of heroes that make up Codename Strykeforce. First and foremost is our writer, the brilliant Steve Gerber. Gerber was born on September 20th, 1947, in St. Louis, Missouri, was an influential comic book writer best known for creating the satirical Marvel Comics character Howard the Duck. Growing up in a Jewish family, Gerber showed an early interest in comics, contributing letters to various comic books and starting one of the first comic fanzines, Headline, in his early teens. He pursued his education in communications at multiple institutions, including the University of Missouri and St. Louis University. Gerber began his professional career as a copywriter for a St. Louis advertising agency, but his passion for comics led him to Marvel Comics, where he was hired by then editor-in-chief Roy Thomas in 1972. Gerber's tenure at Marvel was marked by the creation of several iconic characters and series. He began with Adventure into Fear, The Incredible Hulk, and Shanna the She-Devil. One of his most notable works was the Man-Thing series, where he introduced Howard the Duck as a secondary character. Howard quickly gained popularity, leading to his own series and even a satirical 1976 presidential campaign. Gerber's writing style was distinctive for its satirical edge and the inclusion of lengthy text pages, which added depth to his stories. Despite his success, Gerber faced challenges, including a legal battle with Marvel over the ownership of Howard the Duck, which he eventually lost. Throughout his career, Gerber contributed to various other projects, including the creation of Omega the Unknown and collaborations with artist Mary Screams. He also worked with DC Comics on titles such as The Phantom Zone and Dr. Fate, and for independent publishers like Eclipse Comics. Gerber's work extended to television, where he contributed to series like Thundar the Barbarian and the new Batman-Superman adventures. Despite battling idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis in his later years, Gerber continued to write until his death on February 10, 2008. His legacy was honored posthumously with an induction into the Will Eisner Comic Book Hall of Fame in 2010.
Now, how about our artist for the upcoming story we are about to discuss? Billy Tan Monkoy, widely recognized as Billy Tan, is a distinguished Malaysian comic book artist known for his dynamic and detailed penciling work. Born in Malaysia, Tan relocated to the United States in 1989 at the age of 18 to study business at the University of Kentucky. His passion for comic art led him to a career as a penciler for Image Comics in the 1990s, where he began to make a name for himself in the industry. Tan's early work includes contributions to titles like Codename, Strykeforce, and Cyber Force and Strykeforce, opposing forces, showcasing his talent and setting the stage for his future success in the comic book world. Tan's career took a significant leap forward when he joined Marvel Comics. In 2006, he became the regular artist for the flagship series Uncanny X-Men, bringing a fresh and compelling visual style to the iconic title. His work on New Avengers, particularly during the Secret Invasion storyline, further solidified his reputation as a top-tier artist. Tan's versatility and skill eventually led him to DC Comics, where he took over as the penciler for Green Lantern, collaborating with writer Robert Venditti. Throughout his career, Tan has contributed to numerous high-profile projects, including Shadowland, Thor, and X-23, making a lasting impact on both Marvel and DC universes. His early work on opposing forces remains a notable highlight in his extensive bibliography, exemplifying his early promise and dedication to the craft.
And what about the members of Strykeforce? Colonel Morgan Stryker, the formidable leader of Strykeforce, first appeared in Cyber Force Preview Ashcan Edition number 1. A former Army colonel, Stryker is known for his extensive combat training and mercenary skills. Distinguished by his 3 cybernetically enhanced right arms and an array of implants, Stryker possesses enhanced durability, super sight, and impressive marksmanship. His cybernetic enhancements make his right arms bulletproof, and his infrared vision adds to his tactical advantages. Stryker's military expertise and near-perfect aim make him a deadly adversary. Despite his rugged exterior and unconventional relationship with teammate Ballistic, Stryker remains a steadfast and strategic leader within his team. The rest of the members of Strykeforce first appeared in the last pages of Cyber Force Issue 4. Herbert Percival Percy Wainwright III, known as Black Anvil, is a third-generation member of the aristocratic Wainwright clan. Anvil stands out with his blue skin and immense muscular build, though he is shorter than the average superhuman. His superhuman durability allows him to withstand explosions and extreme conditions, while his super strength enables him to lift and move heavy objects effortlessly. Despite his aristocratic upbringing, Black Anvil transforms into a slang-talking, short-tempered brawler on missions. Killraiser is a former member of the assassin guild Kia Sumatra. Rescued by Morgan Stryker and later recruited into Strykeforce, Killraiser's powers include retractable claws, accelerated healing, stealth capabilities, and the ability to cling to walls. His skills as a weapon master complement his lethal efficiency in combat. Trace O'Donnell, alias Bloodbow, is renowned for his exceptional marksmanship. Bloodbow was rumored to be a government sniper and assassin before joining Strykeforce. His cybernetic enhancements boost his already impressive skills, granting him limited super strength in his arms and perfect accuracy with his compound bow up to 4,200 feet. Bloodbow's arsenal includes arrows with various capabilities, such as concussion and plasma flash arrows. Known for his bravery and loyalty, Bloodbow was romantically involved with teammate Tempest. His heroic legacy continues even after his death at the hands of the alien Shurok, with the alien Princess Sharon taking his place to honor him. Lane Quintana, better known as Tempest, is a mutant with the ability to manipulate air molecules, can fly, create powerful constructs, and unleash wind blasts capable of piercing steel. Her agility, stamina, and unarmed combat skills make her a versatile and formidable fighter. Tempest's control over the air allows her to perform extraordinary feats, such as bringing down armored tanks and slowing falls.
All right, that should do it. Let's join Jesse, Matthew, and Dean for their talk about Cyber Force Codename Strykeforce, Opposing Forces.
Welcome to the Unspoken Issues Podcast. There are forces, and they are opposing, and we're going to be talking about that tonight. We're going to be talking about Cyber Force, Strykeforce, opposing forces. To all good things, there must come an end, and I think that's...
and also Strykeforce at the end.
And Strykeforce as well.
Also Strykeforce at the end.
Oh, my goodness. What I would have titled this is called Cyber Force, Strykeforce Needs More Impact. That's what it should have been called.
That was one of the things I was going to bring up quickly.
It's a criticism.
He's the coolest guy, and he doesn't do anything but wear a hat.
And he chauffeurs the accountant away. And it's, well, thanks a lot. All right. So, yeah, we're getting into Cyber Force, Strykeforce, Opposing Forces. Dean Compton's right over there.
That's me.
Down there is Matthew Price coming from Speeding Bullet Comics. That's right.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad you could join us. So, okay. All right. Dean, I think really the question's already answered. Why'd you pick this book? And I think it's because you love me. That's really all it comes down to.
It's your time to shine. Last time, I think the three of us got together, we did Punisher Ghost of Innocence, which I loved and thought was great. Matthew Price didn't. He doesn't have good taste, though. He has great taste, y'all. I'm just kidding. But no.
It had its moments.
It had its moments. We had a nice discussion about that. So it's time to throw you a bone. Every dog gets its day. And Jesse, you better bark because we're talking about Cyber Force.
Yes, indeed we are.
Hey, speaking of Cyber Force, you remember that show Cops from 1989, the cartoon?
Oh, Fighting crime in a future time.
That dog, he could have been in Cyber Force.
He could have
been in Cyber Force, right?
Oh,
but the dog
goodness.
especially.
As we mentioned the other day, Dean, could Inspector Gadget have been in Cyber Force?
I believe he qualifies on a lot of levels.
Yes. Well, one thing that Cyber Force is definitely missing is a pet. So we need the dog in there for sure.
Dynamite even.
Dynamite? Wow.
I love Dynamite.
The dog from Battlestar Galactica was a robot dog.
Yeah.
Oh,
K9.
K9 from Doctor
K9
Who.
from Doctor Who. Yeah, we got some stuff here. Not that weird dog from Man's Best Friend. You remember that movie as a robot dog or something?
Lance
It's terrible.
Henderson?
That's the only bad dog movie in history. It's that and Cujo. Every other dog movie is a good dog.
Yeah. So, Matthew Price, tell us all about your experience with Cyber Force and Strykeforce. Yeah.
Hey, Killraiser's not popping those blades out for nothing.
I was more into Cyber Force than Strykeforce. I think I bought the first one of Codename Strykeforce because it was early enough in Image that I was just picking them all up. Cyber Force I was into for longer, and I don't remember exactly how long I picked it up, but obviously the Silvestri art is so good that even if the story is in places derivative, you're just like, it just looks so cool.
Right.
That you're just into it. So I definitely bought the whole first mini. And after that, I'm not sure, I picked them up off and on probably, but I couldn't tell you a ton about the plot after the first mini. And I couldn't tell you a ton about the plot of the one we just read.
Oh, I had to research.
Yeah. Now that it was, and you have Billy Tan instead of Silvestri, but he was one of, I think, the better sort of Image guys that wasn't an Image founder. He was pretty solid. So, but yeah, for me, Silvestri is just sort of the John Buscema of his era, almost manly men fighting manly things. And it just always looked great. And so, yeah, I'm a big fan of his art. His stories, maybe more hit or miss on, but it always looks so good. It kind of covers over any flaws in maybe the storytelling or the plotting generally.
You can see the Buscema influence, especially when they get into the more techno mage stuff with the darkness and Witchblade, especially. Now you can really see the Conan influence. Like he said strong dudes and sexy dames and swords and scratching and guys who have hands that glow because necromancy. So you can really see that later in what I flipped through. Although I haven't read as much of that era as I'd like to have, but I can definitely see that influence.
Well, and his X-Men and his Wolverine, I thought, was one of the best runs ever on Wolverine. That Hama, Silvestri, 30 issues or whatever they did, maybe not quite that many, was just terrific. One of my favorite runs of Wolverine ever. So,
well, let me flip this on you then. How about Steve Gerber?
I like Steve Gerber a lot. I felt at least you kind of found little Steve Gerberisms kind of sneaking through. It wasn't as a lot of Steve Gerber stuff is so Steve Gerber flavor.
Yeah.
That it's that's the strongest flavor of it. But in this, it was almost, I don't know, because of the art or whatever, the Gerberness of it was a little more sublimated. But no, I like Howard the Duck. I like Sludge from the Ultraverse. I like his Defenders.
Fool Killer.
Fool Killer is a fun character, depending on your definition of the word fun. But
right.
But yeah, no, I like a lot of Steve Gerber stuff. And I actually like a lot of Lynn Wein stuff, who scripts the second issue here. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, it's just a mix of flavors here that doesn't quite land for me. I don't know. It's not bad. It's not spaghetti and meatballs, but it's not quite maybe spaghetti and, I don't know, something that doesn't go with spaghetti very well. Everything sounded like berry ice cream. I don't know. Because they're each, I think, individually good. It's a kind of a weird fit.
Yeah. Looking this over, I was just trying to get a good idea of when Gerber kind of took over.
The last 4 issues of Codename Strykeforce or so. I want to say he takes over with issue number 10 or 11.
Yeah, I'm looking at it here. It says, okay, the first 9 were written by David Wall and Marc Silvestri and illustrated by Brandon Peterson, with the last 5 written by Steve Gerber and illustrated by Billy Tan.
And Michael Turner does the cover on the last issue of Codename Strykeforce, which I want to say is, if it's not his first Image work, it's among it.
Yeah, they've got him listed here as Michael Turner on issue 14.
Yeah.
As far as Steve Gerber goes, I've read a little bit of him, but I really appreciate his absurd more than I do something like this. I know he can do this because he's done it before, right? He's written plenty of other books that are similar in tone, would probably be the best way to put it. But I appreciate more absurd Steve Gerber than I do anything else. However,
I definitely miss his irreverence here. There's usually a lot more subtle, pithy shots at authority and authoritarian structures and things like that. And there's really very, very little of that.
Right. So, yeah, as far as Billy Tan goes, I can't say that I remember much of what else he's done. I'll open up his wiki here, just taking a look. He's got some stuff here as far as the 90s go. Oh, my goodness. How did I forget about this? Star Trek X-Men.
That's right.
Yeah, he was
your favorite.
Among other artists. But, yeah, so as far as Codename Strykeforce, just to kind of lay the groundwork with myself, Clearly, it's been documented that I'm a big Cyber Force fan. But as far as Codename Strikeforce, I think I've got a couple issues as well. This was a situation where I probably went to the comic book store and found a bunch of back issues they were trying to get rid of for $1.50.
Pick this up off the shelf with your boy Stryker. Your boy Stryker was in this.
Listen, dude, I had another metal-armed guy. His name was Cable.
That's true.
But
Cable doesn't have as many arms as Stryker.
No, he does not.
That reminds me of this time I was really trolling Emily. And I was like, listen, the show Andromeda is much better than Farscape. She's like, don't you say anything else. It got 2 more seasons on broadcast TV. So it has to be better, right?
Because there's more.
Right. So Stryker must be better than Cable because he has more arms. That's not true.
I don't know about that logic.
Yeah. Although I would watch the Cyber Force 97 cartoon, not going to lie.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I hope somebody has that actually in their head right now. So,
Jesse, I don't mean to be a hater, but why the fuck would they?
You're trying to be facts or facts.
Honestly, for you, I hope there is, but it's kind of like the people who show up in the Ultraverse group every week. And I swear to God, there's a new one every week. It's like, why don't they bring back the Ultraverse? Blah, blah, blah. Bro, it's not coming back. I don't know that we're going to get a Cyber Force cartoon, barring some kind of incredible miracle. But you still have the 90s toys.
That's right. That's right. Derry actually had sent me, I think I talked about this. He sent me 3 little figures, Ripclaw.
Yeah.
I'm going to Stryker, and then I can't remember the third one. It might have been Heatwave. I don't know. I have them sitting upstairs. I have to take a look at them. But anyway, they're tiny little PVC figures or whatever. They're pretty cool.
You know, the dude who licensed that for Mattel got fired, right?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because it was supposed to go along with the cartoon, but the cartoon fell through. So now Mattel had all these Cyber Force figures with no cartoon, nothing else to go on. So they did not make a lot of money off that because as popular as Cyber Force was, say, on this Skype call at the time, but they wanted to sell it to a lot more people. So it didn't work out.
Right. Dean, if I threw it to you and asked you to at least give us a breakdown of who the Codename Strikeforce members are, do you think you could do it?
I could tell you their powers, and that's probably it.
That's fine. I need birth dates.
I remember when I first saw the first goddamn ad for Codename Strikeforce, and it was in Hero Illustrated, and it was a double page, and I was like, why? Why? Who's this for? Turns out it was for the bank, and they were going to make some money, and that's
true.
Fine. But at the time, I was going through this page. I don't know if y'all go through this phase or not. Matt probably did, but I was jaded. I was super jaded about everything in comics for a little bit. I was like 8th grade too, so it was a quick jaded period where I was like, Frank Miller wouldn't put up with this. Probably would have written Codename Strikeforce for the right price. No big deal.
You get, maybe not 8th grade, but when the image stuff first came out, you're just like, man, this is cool. Look how awesome it looks. And then maybe you read some Vertigo comics if you're me, and you're like, oh, but these are much deeper. And then you maybe think, well, this is better than the other stuff, but it's just different flavors. You get to the point where you just realize sometimes you want ice cream and sometimes you want steak, and it doesn't necessarily mean either one is bad.
Right.
Just you have different you want different things at different times.
I think I was fired up after what Frank Miller said at that place where he was like, Jim Shooter's the guy who screwed Jack Kirby, whatever. It was some award ceremony, this whole thing.
Maybe the Harveys in there.
I think this happened around the same time, so I was super fired up, and I was mad at the man. Somehow Image had become the man as well to me at that time.
So
it depended on who you were. I wasn't as mad at Todd, but let's be honest. Marc Silvestri and Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld just started doing the same thing that Marvel did. They set up a studio, and Rob Liefeld less so. But the other two, for sure, like, I own this stuff, make my stuff. And that was, I got jaded about it at the time.
I think it's a little different to be like, I'm an artist, I created this, now I'm hiring people to work on it, versus what happened to, say, Siegel and Schuster.
I agree.
And in the case of Rob, he definitely paid people at the top of the market.
Yeah, and you also have stuff Dutch, Chappie Ape owns.
Yeah.
So he did a little less of that, but that's what I was going to say. But I was jaded at the time. Everything was just black and white. That's what I was seeing when I saw this stuff. And now it's probably a little more, little column A, little column B. It's probably not as cut and dry as you're making it out to be. But in 8th grade, I had a lot of answers for a lot of things. And I'd like to talk to that kid again, because he had a lot of things figured out that I don't know shit from Apple Letter about now.
Did the 8th grade Dean read the issues of Strikeforce in which they had to protect Bill Clinton?
No, but he would not have liked that. Eighth and 9th grade Dean was a very weird conservative guy. And he would
he's from your, so you didn't even though he was from your backyard, it was, not for me.
I sold fireworks when I was in 8th grade, and the guy who ran the stand was a huge Rush Limbaugh guy. And so in those 2 or 3 weeks, he totally
converted you.
Yeah. I was young and impressionable, and he wanted someone who was a grown adult. My dad had just died. He'd only been dead a year, and I wanted an older man to be like, this kid is something. But he filled the role, and so I got filled with a bunch of nonsense. He was also very nice about other things, but he got filled with a bunch of nonsense.
Well, and people have different opinions. I'm glad he was there to hang out with you, but you would have not appreciated that Stryker and Icarus had to protect President Bill Clinton.
No, I remember being just so mad about anything that when he showed up in the Secret City saga. Yeah. But here's the thing, neither the fireworks guy nor Bill Clinton's in Codename Strikeforce. But if they were, I could name their powers.
No, well, but not in these issues. But Bill Clinton is an earlier issue of Codename.
But he's not on the team.
Well, no, as far as I know.
I read an interview once. I'm just kidding.
He's a secret member, like he was secret playable character on NBA Jam. I'm Bill Clinton and Air Bud.
The secret Washington Wizards player.
Yeah. All right.
Plays Jordan and Bill Clinton.
Who could stop those two? Not even Strikeforce.
I don't know. Killraiser could make knives out of any part of his body, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
That's his power.
Yeah.
Is he mute? Doesn't say anything. It doesn't say anything at all.
I think he's doing the Snake Eyes thing.
He does the Snake Eyes thing. I don't know if he can or cannot.
I cannot remember that.
Maybe he made a knife out of his tongue at one point.
Right. That was it.
Dadgummit.
when you're in the same room with Rip Claw and Rip Claw's doing all the talking. All right, that's a room you want to get out of. Okay, so that's Killraiser. Killraiser and his knives. That
Blood Bow has a bow.
He has a bow. I don't think it shoots blood, but it draws blood when he shoots it.
Ooh, okay.
Right.
Does he shoot it? I didn't know why the bow was Blood Bow. Is it because he...
I think he's just deadly.
Okay. And then Anvil is strong.
Yeah, as near as I can tell, Black Anvil is a shorter, blacker, squatter thing.
Like an anvil.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But the Thing from the Fantastic Four.
Okay.
He chomps on a cigar. He's always saying, hey, kids, what's going on? Always seems to be having a pretty good time. So to me, I was here's your version of the Thing.
And Tempest, which is a synonym for storm.
Yes.
Can control the weather.
Can control the weather. She can make storm. Not to be confused with Aqualad.
Yes, different Tempest.
That's a different Tempest.
Stryker we talked about. He has 3 metal arms on one side of his body, which is actually explained in this series.
I feel that's the most important part of the whole series.
That's the reason they did.
How does that guy walk?
We need to explain why he's not constantly tipping over.
I feel like Steve Gerber demanded that.
Good.
There's some reason this guy is not tipping over. Who am I missing on the team?
Okay, so we've got Black Anvil, we've got Killraiser, we've got Tempest, and we've got Colonel Morgan Stryker. And then what we should, I guess, that's all we have going on as far as the team right now is Blood Bow, though, just before, I assume, because this is talked about in these 2 issues, just before this happened, Blood Bow apparently had died. Stryker had seen this happen, but we find out that Blood Bow's been dead for a while.
It happens.
Blood Bow has been dead, and a alien by the name of Sharon.
I think Sharon is what
you think it's Sharon?
Well, so we would just say Sharon. Like, we don't Jones. We'll just say Jones. It's easier.
Okay, so that's
Sharon.
Easier to say than what I was saying in my head.
Okay. Yeah. Sharon. So Sharon is a...
Good Sharon.
Yes. There is an alien race, apparently, that had tried to invade Earth. She accidentally killed Blood Bow at some point. I think this happened early in the series, but she accidentally killed Blood Bow, regretted it, so took his place on the team as Blood Bow for quite a while. Up until shortly before this happened, Blood Bow gets killed in front of somebody, so she can't do that anymore. Stryker ends up, there must have been some kind of heavy battle at the end of some of the final issues of Codename Strikeforce, and he is gravely injured. And just before he goes in for an operation, he tells somebody, I think he tells Ripclaw, yeah, I saw Blood Bow die. Now, Sharon is kind of worried about that because obviously if word gets around, she's going to be found. She's going to be found out. So, yeah, Blood Bow has been dead for a while. Sharon's taken his place. Bloodbows died again, in quotes. And now she is trying to figure out what she needs to do next. So
she's revealed to some degree. So
right.
Something I thought, and I may be jumping ahead of what you're going to talk about on the recap.
No, you go right ahead.
This actually is, 10 years or so, or maybe a little more before Secret Invasion, and it has some sort of Secret Invasion elements to it.
Oh, there's scrolls.
So maybe part of the reason that it seems a little derivative is because, if I'd read this before, obviously scrolls predate this, but having, there's an infiltrator on the team and all that, maybe that would have seemed fresher at the time it originally came out.
Well, this is also coming out on the heels of Elijah was Alicia. It happened in something else, too, that was pretty big, and I can't remember.
Well, Domino, kind of.
Bloodwind, Martian Manhunter thing. He wasn't exactly Bloodwind, but they were integrated.
Well, I said Domino was kind of like this.
But it probably felt less derivative in the Image universe, because I don't think they had really done, I don't know, or well, in the Cyber Force corner of the Image universe, because I don't think they've done this yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought of the scrolls a lot throughout this, especially when we get to the end. Okay, well, so much so that I was, wow. Yeah, derivative is the word, because we were pulling from some stuff that I'd seen for sure in Marvel Comics. But yeah, okay, so we've covered who Strykeforce is, codename Strykeforce. We also need to talk a little bit about the members of Cyber Force. They're still the same. We won't have to go through all their powers or anything like that. Dean, list them for me one more time.
Stryker, Heatwave, Ripclaw, Psyblade, Impact. Am I missing somebody?
Velocity,
that's it.
There you go.
Ballistic? Is Ballistic in this?
The Ballistic is that she does join, and then there's Chip and Timmy as the auxiliary department.
Timmy,
I just read this. Was Ballistic in this?
Timmy and Inorganic.
Yesterday.
A lot has happened. So, Dean, just to kind of throw this back to you, because you mentioned this, and I think this is important. You said you saw the 2-page spread, and you were like, why? So were you just like, why does Stryker need to have 2 teams? Or was it all about, why do we need so much of the same thing? Is that what it was?
Yes, to both of them.
All right.
That was another thing because I remember reading an article, Codename Strykeforce is what Stryker does in his spare time for fun and money. I remember it really necessarily isn't, but again, I was just inclined to be against it. But yeah, this is a cash grab. This can't go anywhere. There's nothing that can come of this. How much could Stryker do? How much does the market even want this? And it turns out the market didn't want it. It only lasted about a year. But none of that. I was more just jaded than anything. And really, I was making the mistake that I hate that people make now. Who gives a shit? I wasn't going to buy it anyway. I wasn't buying Cyber Force a lot anyway at the time. But it was stuff I would grow to love a little bit later. So I should have been knocking it so hard anyway, because apparently it wasn't for me. Also, the Image guys also had a lot of flack at the time for being late and prima donnas.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that tied into it, too. I was like, so you want more money to not put out books.
I was just reading the interview. There was an interview that Silvestri did with Wizard, and I think it was February of 93. Let me look at this. Wizard 30. February 94, I'm sorry. One of the big takeaways from that was the fact that he was, we want to make sure that we get our stuff out on time. So there was some kind of a mandate that they had come up with that they couldn't solicit a book unless it was going to definitely be coming out on time.
Got to a point where the book had to be finished before they would solicit. 2 issues had to be done.
Here it is. I found my note. It says Image Comics implemented a new policy to complete a certain number of issues before soliciting a book.
I read it somewhere. It was 2 had to be completely done and ready to go, and 1 had to be at least the penciling stage before they would solicit any more books. Because I don't remember the numbers, and Matt, you might remember, but Deathmate Red, they had to resolicit it, and the orders went from something 600 to 175,000. So you got to figure Rob Liefeld and Image lost $1 million on that.
And I wish I had better data to give you guys, but at some point, if I remember right, they changed how they build out the comics. Because I feel maybe when Image first started, you just wrote your check when you turned in your order.
Yes.
I want these comics, and here's my $3,000 or whatever. But they had come out so regularly, you just were always paying your money and getting about that many comics. But then Image, you're like, I want 100,000 of these things. I'm going to go ahead and write the check, and then it never comes out until your cash flow is screwed because you've got it all tied up in a book that's not coming out.
Right.
I think even more pressure on them back then to not solicit things if you didn't have them, because the money was literally tied up. And at some point they changed it. Before I ever got into being the guy that wrote the checks, that was changed. but I can see that being problematic.
Well,
Yeah,
sure.
around this time in it was about the time Deathmate dropped. Diamond changed what they like returnability, and it was one of the first times that Diamond accepted returns for anything other than a mistake or this book turns out there was nudity that wasn't supposed to be in the book or something like it offended people or what have you. But they changed this just because Image was so late, and there was a certain number of stores that went out of business for what reasons you're saying. They had so much money tied up in books that never arrived. And then sometimes when the books did arrive, 4 months late, well, the guy who was going to spend $2 on Pitt's gone. He bought Codename Terminatrix, Avengers miniseries, or Warriors of Plasm, or something that was out, or they just never came back.
Right. And if you look at how the business was in the 70s when Spider-Man's coming out, even if it's a complete fill-in book. So if I pay for Spider-Man, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to get Spider-Man. Whereas with the Image shift, it's much more, well, if I don't get Youngblood, it's not like there's a fill-in issue of Youngblood, at least certainly not at that point. It's that book or it's nothing.
Right. All right. So let me go ahead and we're going to get into the synopsis of this thing. I've got the synopsis written out here.
At the end of this, I will understand what happened.
If not, Jesse's fired.
Yeah. This was there was a lot there that you had to try and just digest. I think a lot of what I'll just preface it this way. We are ending a chapter in Morgan Stryker's life, essentially, and we have to figure out a way to send off.
That's some one life to live shit.
We have to find a good way to send off Strykeforce. And how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to have a big 2-issue crossover, which I was really surprised this was only 2 issues. I'll tell you that right now. I thought for sure I was going to see a 4-issue series here. I forgot that this was only 2 issues.
Seems the only reason it was published was to wrap up Strykeforce.
It really...
When I suggested it, and I was like, oh, well, this is probably a fun romp. These guys get together, and Stryker's got to keep them apart or something. They have opposing missions or whatever. But these forces don't really collide, even though that's sort of what that's what it says.
Right.
And it winds up just being, hey, we're reading Strykeforce. This is what happens. Going back to Matthew Price, you're talking about the fill-ins of the 70s. It's almost like they wrapped up Omega the Unknown in Defenders. Or they wrapped up super villain team up in Champions or something.
The wrap up for those books.
They just didn't do it in Cyber Force, perhaps because those books were already done and you couldn't get it in there. You didn't want to solicit. Perhaps they were like, we just want to do this. But it does not feel anyone was clamoring for this at the time. And it does not feel like these books serve any purpose other than that, which... if that's their only purpose, that's not a bad thing.
I'm curious to the behind the scenes of this, which I don't think we found out.
I did a lot of research. I went through Comic Scene and Wizard and Hero Illustrated and even the Comics Journal. I thought that maybe Gary Groth would just be pissed, set this on fire and then not pissing on it or something. But no, man, none of it was happening. Nobody had anything to say. I could find the stuff about like when Strykeforce launched, but nothing about its demise. And so that's very interesting too. They were, let's get a book out here. Let's wrap this up. We can charge. We can make a little money off this on low print run, high cover price. It's $2.95 without a gimmick, which is pretty high at that time. So
True.
You know what I mean.
Well, sit
But
back.
I am glad the people who followed Strykeforce got to see an ending. What I was saying is there's too many comics that happen where we don't get an ending. You're like, oh man, this gets canceled or a creator stops doing it or God forbid passes on. So I don't want to shit on it by saying, oh, it's the only reason to do it. That's the only reason to do it.
It's a little abrupt, but it does at least wrap it up.
It at least wraps it up. And I'm sure we all have like my big thing for that is 1963. 1963 is never going to include.
Well,
and I love that book.
Maybe. I mean, you've looked at the same thing I have.
What?
On that. The Don Simpson thing.
Oh, Don Simpson. Yeah, Don Simpson's thing, which is funny. But as far as the Image universe crossover, so it's
no, I think that's as good as you're going to get.
That's it. That's all there is. There's also a fan project they're trying to do that got stalled, and I'd be interested to see that. But that's a big one for me. So I'm glad that all 7 fans of Codename Strykeforce did not get 1963.
Well, sit back real quick, grab yourself a cup of coffee, because I've got to go through the creator credits on this thing.
Oh, my gosh. That's going to take a week and a half.
And I have to pronounce every single one of these names right.
Just the colorists are going to take you 30 minutes.
Steve Gerber on story, Billy Tan, pencils and inks, Jonathan D. Smith, Steve Fairchild on colors, Tyson Wengler, Jonathan D. Smith, Bill Adams, Steve Furchow, Richard Eisenhow, Catherine Birch, Judy Hasabuchi, Cynthia Morris, Corey Aguilar on computer colors, and then letters, Dennis Heisler. And I usually don't go much further than that. However, there is and maybe this is a comic book term. I've never seen this before. Peter Steigerwald, Il Deuce. What does that mean?
That's shit. It's what they called Mussolini, so he's probably the editor or something.
All right, now that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know how to say Duce or something. I don't know. I ain't Italian and I ain't a fascist. So I don't fucking know. There's one thing that everybody knows about me is that I'm not a fascist.
That's true.
That's true. So yeah, but that's a word for Mussolini, so I assume they were running the show.
Victor Lamas gets, I guess, some standout font here among Raymond Negron and Zhang Zhu with ink assists and color embellishes.
Lorenzo Lamas for a second?
No, afraid not.
The funky font did throw me. Everyone else got this real serious A-team font. And then he's got like this SpongeBob SquarePants font in the middle of it.
Yeah, that's kind
He's the real rebel.
And then color embellishes Juan Carlos Rodriguez.
How many people had to fucking color this thing?
I don't know.
Apparently, and like it had regular colors, computer colors, color embellishment.
Right.
Hey,
right.
Congratulations to Top Cow for keeping people employed during a crunch, though, right?
Yeah, we appreciate that. We do. And yes, Lynn Ween helped out on the script on the second issue. And a couple of the other, let me see, did I mention that person's name? No. Pam Eklund, Howard M. Shum, Joe Ween, the fifth, David Mowry as apparently helping on pencils here. And if I forgot anybody, I'll catch them up in the
Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
There's my brother Daryl.
I feel like you're like Daryl. Chris Jericho, where he had like 1,004 holds, and you're just the arm bar.
Oh man! All right, let's get into this. Cyber Force, codename Strykeforce, opposing forces, issue 1. An alien race of shapeshifters known as the Shuri have dispatched hunters to track down a traitor that was within their ranks. This traitor, Sharon, had previously aided in saving Earth, and I think she helped Cyber Force do this at some point. At least or maybe it's Strykeforce. I'm sorry. It's probably Strykeforce. And now she is marked for punishment.
Could be Wildcats.
It could be.
U.S. mail.
It may very well be. The Shuri have manipulated the mind of a villain named Portal, I believe is his name. You guys, or at least he can create portals.
I don't remember his name either. I just remember he looks like somebody tried to turn him into a raisin, but they quit about halfway.
Yeah. My guess, my understanding is he faced off with Strykeforce, got sent to the bottom of the sea.
Hanging out there.
Yeah, he's been so mad at what happened, at his own defeat, that he's just sat there. He hasn't ate or drank anything, and somehow the Shurians knew about this guy and knew that they could manipulate him into creating portals so they could invade Earth. So I don't know if they've had an interaction with him in the past. I don't know. We'll just be aware that's their vehicle to get to Earth is through this guy. All right. Now, meanwhile, Stryker is undergoing some repairs on his cybernetics with the help of his Cyber Force teammates. Killraiser, Tempest, and Black Anvil visit Dominique Beener, who is apparently the accountant for Strykeforce's endeavors here.
Yeah.
So
they don't have any money.
So they go to visit her and kind of update her on Stryker's condition, and then they leave. All right. Now, after they leave, Beener then reveals herself to be Sharon. Yes, Sharon has taken on a new identity here. She didn't kill Dominique in any way, but she's taking her place. Where is the real Dominique? We don't know. Not yet, anyway. All right, so she reveals herself to be Sharon, who has been masquerading as Bloodbow since accidentally killing him. All right.
Yeah.
Sharon is tormented by the need to end her deception. She feels bad about this. She clearly is, number one, worried about herself. She knows she's going to be hunted by this alien race, and the only friends and family that she has is Strykeforce. So what she does is she makes a decision that she is going to reveal herself to the team. Of course, now she's got to go find them because they just left.
Yeah, she could have made this a lot easier.
It's just 10 minutes earlier made that decision.
Yeah. I'm not mad about the lion. I'm mad that we could have done this a while back.
Right. And just to kind of give everybody an idea, the Shurians, I can't remember if they put that in the book, what they were called, but the Shuri in order for them to shapeshift, what they have to do is they have to hit you with their tongue, kind of like a frog. And when they hit you with their tongue, they then absorb your DNA and therefore can transform into you. So there has to be some type of contact first. And we see that happen with Sharon when she does that to a bird in order to shapeshift into a bird and fly off to go find Strykeforce. All right.
It's creepy.
Yeah. The bird is laying there on the ground or laying there on the ledge, bleeding
and shit. Some vertigo stuff. What's going on here?
So she takes the form of a bird and she sets out to find Strykeforce and confess the truth. Killraiser, Tempest, and Black Anvil board this aircraft. There's a pilot by the name of PJ. They're flying through the air, and then all of a sudden they get disrupted by a blinding light. They end up landing in a river. Thank goodness, though, this plane is somewhat able to travel through
submersible.
The water.
Thank God they were in the G.I. Joe Shark, and Deep Six was driving it.
I don't think it's very waterproof, though, because there's just a bunch of leaks starting to happen.
It is leaky.
But anyway,
I don't have a car that can go underwater, so I'm not going to chastise them for theirs not being perfect.
That's fine. Now, Cyber Force ends up hearing about a woman who was cocooned where Stryker was rescued. That's kind of odd. There was somebody that was cocooned there right where we just picked Stryker up. Most of the Cyber Force team decides to investigate. Though Heatwave remains a bit skeptical. He doesn't want to have anything to do with this Strykeforce. Apparently, that was going to be the first stop to talk to Strykeforce and find out what was up. So Heatwave's like, I'll stay behind. Cyblade does the same thing. So there's 3 people that head over to meet Strykeforce: Ripclaw, Velocity, and Timmy. So they joined Strykeforce on a submarine, which I think they had acquired recently from a Russian villain.
Yeah.
During the Bill Clinton mission.
Was that when it happened? Okay.
I remember reading this in a solicit or something, or one of those wizard picks things, and they got a sub.
They saved Bill Clinton, and somehow they end up with a Russian sub. I think.
Why not?
I think it's a Russian sub.
It is a Russian one.
Definitely.
Yeah, because that was very topical at the time for them to play up that the Soviet Union was breaking apart. I remember that's a thing in Stormwatch, too.
So these 3 from Cyber Force, Ripclaw, Velocity, and Timmy, they end up finding Strykeforce and visit them on their submarine. And then Sharon shows up in the guise of Bloodbow. And it was also at that time where Ripclaw reveals that Stryker had witnessed a teammate's death. And so now things are starting to come to light. Oh, she's been masquerading as Bloodbow for quite a while.
One of you has to be dead.
Right. So Sharon, of course, reveals her true form. She's one of these aliens. Now, Tempest is mad. She is enraged that she's been deceived. Their team's been deceived. Bloodbow, was there a relationship between Bloodbow and Tempest? I can't recall. But she's obviously very emotionally invested.
I don't know why you think I would.
She's very emotionally invested in this, and she gets mad. But before she can do anything,
she gives him the old Batman Robin meme.
Oh, yeah. Sure. The Shurian extermination team shows up. So they finally showed up to find Sharon, and they're going to end this traitorous alien's life. Black Anvil. So there's a fight. There's a fight on the sub. Black Anvil ends up pummeling one of them with his fists. Velocity and Tempest
cool as hell.
Subdue another one of them. And there's an attempt to extract the DNA of Timmy, but it fails because he's not organic, and you just watch this thing kind of fade into nothingness or fall, just kind of turn into goop. Now, the final extermination team member ends up fighting against Sharon, and there's this big battle, and all of a sudden, one of them is killed, and it shoots up through the roof of the sub and explodes in midair. That's where we pretty much end the issue. Now, as we get into issue 2, Stryker awakens and begins his rehabilitation. Heatwave informs him that he cannot reach the rest of the team, so he's been trying to reach them.
Hey, don't forget he gets the gyro thing put in his head so that he doesn't fall over. I swear to God, that's the most important thing that happens in these 2 issues.
Well, it's going to come back at the end, too.
It better.
Yes. There is an equilibrium, some compensator that's inserted into his ear, or has been there for a while. They've now got to get him with all these repairs that they've been doing in order for him to walk. What was I can't remember the phrase.
So he doesn't walk like a hunched over gorilla.
Yes.
It's funny because a couple weeks ago on the page, we posted something and somebody asked, how did he walk? And I think I sent it to you guys because I think it was a smart-ass answer on the page some. I was very carefully, I mean, you know how he walks? It's a fucking comic book. That's how he walks, okay? Exactly. Who changes the tires on the Batmobile? It doesn't matter.
Right.
But somebody in that thing responded. Oh no, they answer it in Cyber Force, Codename, Strykeforce, Colliding.
Wow.
And that's the kind of people we had. That's the fans we have. If I don't know, they come through and they bring it up. So you get that snark and you get the facts. Both.
So
funny that came up.
So he says, look, Stryker, I've been trying to get a hold of the rest of the team. Can't get a hold of them. I don't know what's going on. They turn on the news and lo and behold, there's the submarine in flames off the coast of Rhode Island. Stryker and the rest of the team are like, we've got to go and check and see what's going on. Now, in a New York hospital, Dominique Beener is being extracted from a cocoon. Yes, we finally realized that is why Sharon was masquerading, and we understand how she was. She apparently had cocooned or did something to Beener.
She put her in the Adam Warlock cocoon.
Yep.
And then filled it with Quaaludes.
Jean Grey cocoon was the other thing that I thought of.
Jean Grey cocoon full of Quaaludes. And why can't that be?
And the greatest appearance in this comic book, as she sits there and sips coffee after being extracted, Impact shows up and offers her a ride home. That's all Impact's going to do.
Favorite member of Cyber Force does nothing.
That's all.
And he's the one, honestly, if you were going to pick any of them to drive, other than Stryker, he's not the one, right? What car does that guy fit in? A tank? What did he drive? Any car he drove would get 25 feet to the gallon. Look at him. Why? Go, hey, we need you to go pick somebody up. What the hell? Like, who? Strong guy from X Factor? What are you talking about?
Why him?
I feel like you could have, and maybe I'm wrong, I feel like you could ask the question, why is she in the cocoon naked?
Well,
so the Quaaludes work.
Why is that? It just seems like Alien's a little pervy, but maybe I'm...
I think she's in the Quaaludes, and since she's just soaking them into her skin.
It's a Quaalude bath.
But it's probably both. The alien's probably also a perv. Because look, this alien was done acting like Bloodbow. It's already up to something, right?
Oh, the only reason it is so that we can get that one panel of where we almost see, but if it wasn't for that arm of hers...
I do appreciate the doctors being so brave and just sawing that thing and cracking it open.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
We're medical doctors. We know how to deal with
Right. I didn't go to bone saw school for 7 years to not use it on a cocoon.
What other chance are you going to have to do this?
I'm with them.
All right. So Killraiser and Ripclaw apparently escaped the wrecked submarine, but struggle to locate their teammates. They manage to escape when Stryker arrives in the plane, and concern starts to grow as the rest of the team remains unaccounted for. Ripclaw reveals that Sharon was impersonating Bloodbow, causing tension between Heatwave, Cyclops, and Stryker over leadership issues. In a heated argument, Stryker admits his shortcomings, and Ripclaw reveals his true identity as a Shuri shapeshifter.
Bum, bum, bum.
Teleporting the entire aircraft to their home planet of Shurok.
Look. Shuri, Sharon, Shurok, guys. Shiar. Oh my God. Oh, somebody figured it out.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, guys, like they don't like just come up with they don't all have to sound the same. I got to keep this shit straight. Like make it different.
Sharon.
They didn't call Ronan the accuser, Korean the Kree guy. Just let me split it up a little.
So the plane crashes on Shurok, but the team survives and actually kills the shapeshifter by targeting a gem on its forehead. Apparently, that's their weak spot, we get told. Soon after, they are attacked by a horde of aliens resembling their teammates. Fighting through, they eventually find Ripclaw, Black Anvil, Tempest, Velocity, and Timmy, and move to rescue them. Suddenly, the King of Shuri, a powerful shapeshifter capable of multiple transformations, attacks Stryker. Disabled and on the ground, Stryker seizes the opportunity to pull the gem from the alien king's forehead, causing the rest of the Shuri to retreat into hiding. With the threat neutralized...
Very convenient.
Yes. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, we can't do this. And apparently, Sharon was next in line. So
apparently.
Okay.
Yes, that's probably something that's explored in Codename Strykeforce.
As to whether that's important, I don't know.
Check your local comic book store for issues, but don't look too long. They probably ain't got them.
SB.com, what is it?
SBcomics.com. Hey, we'll look. You send us a message, we'll look.
I love it.
I do believe the $2 million for any issue of Supreme deal still stands.
Yeah,
right?
that holds. That stands. Yeah.
The Supreme Special. With the threat neutralized, Sharon uses her powers to transport everyone back into Earth, specifically into the purple guy's mom's bathroom.
Yes, because
did you cover why the guy was in the bathtub and what was his deal?
Okay, so he was at the bottom of the fucking ocean, right?
That's the same guy.
Same guy.
Pretty sure.
And when they come down, they set off this big old bomb. And when they come through him, and this bomb somehow launches him from the bottom of the ocean onto Long Island. And when he lands, he says, I'm going to go take a bath. So he goes to his mama's house because that's where the bath is. And now he's in the bathtub for a minute. He can apparently see all that's happening. There's this whole page where it gets all wackadoodle. He's looking at the battle, and then they come back through him. Apparently, this teleportation somehow he
through
works
him somehow.
Yeah, so that's how they end up there.
He's the teleport guy. I didn't follow why the teleport guy was in the bathtub.
Yeah, well, he just said he was going back to take a bath, and
he landed in a trash heap, right? It was,
okay.
Yeah. Because I saw that he landed in a trash heap, and then he said, "I'm going to go take a bath." And apparently, he just wants to be done.
Mom. I didn't realize he wasn't an alien in the beginning. I didn't realize he had a mom on Earth.
Everybody's got a mom, Matt. It's biology.
On Earth.
Oh, sorry.
It is one of the. My assumption is this is a villain that they have had in Strike Codename Strike.
I think they fought him during Gerber's run.
It is the weirdest way to use this character, and legitimately, his arc is: I'm mad. Oh crap! Aliens just showed up and used me to teleport through, shot me through the ocean, out of the ocean into a landfill, and I feel.
But I love water, so I'm gonna go get back in the bathtub.
Right.
I need a bath, and then he's just continually used over and over.
I'm going to take a bath for the entire length of this battle. All of this stuff that's happening. I'm taking like a 3-hour bath at least. Maybe 3 days.
He looks like he's getting older too. His powers zapping his life force or something.
I don't know how he became a sentient Slim Jim, but yes, that is what he looks like.
He's continually. His mom even makes a comment. He looks 20, or no, it was her friend. Her friend's like, he's 20 years older than the last time you saw him.
Okay, well, I ain't gotten thrown off by the bathtub guy, so that at least sort of clears it up.
This is an unanswered question.
I assume, and this is the biggest criticism I have of the comic, but it also, because the reason for this comic to exist is like, if you weren't reading Codename Strikeforce, there's some of this stuff like, what? Why?
Yeah. Oh, that is absolutely
But
true.
if this was only put out to wrap that up, then that matters.
Maybe we'd have been more clear if we'd come straight from reading the other issues.
If we were whatever happened to beef jerky ocean guy, oh my God, someone is pretending to be Bloodbow. Is Killraiser really the guy from Madison Square Garden with the knife, the Carnage concert? Because, man, that guy knows his way around pointy things, right? He would probably say that's probably why he doesn't talk. He doesn't want to give away who he is. So he's like, look, I'll put on some knife gloves and I'll make some big knives. As long as I don't talk, no one will recognize me. Because he's got to be wanted after that stunt. You can't bring a knife into Madison Square Garden.
Oh, man. I expect him to show up, but I wasn't expecting him to be Killraiser. That's great. That's perfect. That is fucking perfect. Yeah. So, okay. All right. Well,
honestly, that really seems like a Steve Gerber thing. If anything, with this random guy and some other thing who had a knife turned out to be Killraiser because he was obsessed with knives because his dad was in the circus and threw knives at him.
Could have been a Steve Gerber thing, yeah.
I wonder if this is Steve Gerber using this villain and to kind of make it I forgot that this is Steve Gerber and how absurd what we're watching or what we're seeing happen here. It does
potentially absurd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely got to be the thing. Anyways, they show up in this guy's mom's bathroom and they're okay. Well, yeah, we got to leave.
Sorry, we got to get a ride. We got to call somebody.
So the next day. They're having it's Morgan Stryker, it's the rest of Strike Force are having a sit down, they're having a talk, and Stryker says, you know what, I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I really do not want to be a leader anymore of this team. I do not want to be responsible for any one of you dying, and I'm sure that Bloodbow factors into that a lot because that was the argument that he had with Heatwave.
He basically says they suck because he's like, something's going to get one of you, not me, killed. Oh, okay, Stryker.
So he disbands the team.
And that
did they just rent a hotel conference room to have this meeting? It's kind of unclear.
I don't think it's pretty.
Did they rent like a Radisson?
It's in that ladies' dining room. They're like, hey, you're not using this for a minute, right? You're pretty freaked out. Go see your son in the bathtub. We got to talk.
Imagine, I'm sure that this has had to have happened across the United States of America, where some company or some bigwig at a company is, I got to lay these people off. What's the best way to cushion a blow? Oh, I got an idea. Let's set up a whole thing in a hotel. It looked pretty fancy to me.
And then you're like 3 bottles of wine, something.
And then he's like, yeah, we're not going to be around any longer. You're all laid off. And then he walks out the door. No, he leaves. Just straight up walks out.
We sure had some good times with that Russian submarine. Nope.
And then did Stryker pay the Radisson or who?
I think he absolutely did. That's what he says. They don't have any money.
That's why he left. He got the hell out because he knew he'd have to pay for it.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Well, it was a journey. Cyber Force, codename Strykeforce, opposing forces.
That never really oppose.
No,
not really.
No.
Slightly concentric forces.
Yeah, somewhat amiable forces.
All right, Dean, 2 issues, man. What are you thinking? You've kind of exposed, or you kind of explained a little bit of what you were feeling here. You have the floor. Feel free to get the rest of it out.
I just don't think there's much here. There's nothing really bad here, but there's nothing great here. If you're a fan of Codename Strykeforce, I assume you already have this. I don't know why you wouldn't, because there's not just a ton of shit for you to buy. And then you really should have this. If you like this era a lot, you just want to really be a Cyber Force completist, you should get it. But I don't know. There's not really much else here. It's perfectly well executed, but a lot of it's a little confusing if you weren't reading Strykeforce. I do want to give them a shout out for very topically mentioning the French. When something blows up in the Pacific, they're like, oh, it's got to be the French. The French were engaged in very controversial nuclear tests at the time in the South Pacific. They had not signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty yet, the NPT, which says they wouldn't test anymore and they would work to reduce nukes and stuff. They did right after these tests. So pretty good, pretty topical there. I assume that's a Steve Gerberism. I would have liked to have felt more of Steve Gerber or even Lynn Wein in this, but it's really just, hey, here's some stuff to wrap this bad boy up, and don't let the door hit you or the good Lord split you.
Into 3 arms.
Into 3 arms.
Yeah.
The rhyming alien guy, or the guy that talked like Yoda, the weird purple guy, there is some Gerber stuff in there, but I wonder, because it's in such an image style, we don't associate it with the kind of Gerberism we might if the art was, I don't know, less stylized or more.
Yeah.
That is just my thought, because why is the guy, there's some stuff in here that's pretty weird. The Super Skrull alien is weird.
The Super Skrull.
But it's weirder than Super Skrull. It looks ridiculous, kind of, right? Yeah. You know, because the art
it
is
looks
so
like some Event Horizon shit.
Anyway, I just wonder if it was kind of a weird fit. But I don't know. I'm glad we read it, but I think it's, like I said, the Gerber flavoring doesn't quite come through the style of the art or something.
Yeah. And you wish if the art was going to be this stylized, I don't think it's bad or anything, but I wish it was just a little better. That's the other thing. These layouts could have been a little better. Some things, it's a little muddy at times. But again, I think I was talking earlier, it's a perfectly fine superhero comic. There's nothing particularly wrong or particularly right with it.
Well, I wonder if David Wohl writes this, does it fit with the art better or whatever?
Yeah.
I think Steve Gerber's a fantastic writer, but I just don't know that the weirdness of this stuff is played up in the layouts as much.
Right.
It's not like Mike Plug kind of like, look at this creepy monster coming at me. He's just like, well, there's some creepy monsters, but this whole thing's kind of slick, so I'm just moving on past it.
Right.
Steve Gerber, I don't know off the top of my head, I wonder if he wrote anything during the Witchblade Darkness era, because he probably lends himself better to that style as well, where it's a little more freaky, a little more occultic, a little more, or even Weapon Zero, where it gets a little more cosmic, because I think Gerber's Guardians of the Galaxy stuff is really good and underrated too. So he does that stuff pretty well too. But I don't know that his style, between the art and this just being in your face superhero stuff, I just don't know that it doesn't quite grok, you know? It's like you try to do Hamburger Place and you're like, well, I've had better hamburgers, but it was a hamburger. I don't mean that in a bad way. There's plenty of places like that.
Again, I guess what I've got to remember is that as much of a crossover of these two teams as I want it to be, it's more about wrapping up why there's not going to be any more Codename Strykeforce on the shelves.
Yeah.
I can sit here and complain about why didn't you use Impact at all during this whole thing. But you also have a book with 2 teams in it. Right. Somebody's got to do something, and all the Strykeforce guys have got to be in this. You can't just give Black Anvil you can't shove him to the side.
Bloodbow.
He's in here for a second, but yeah. So that's probably one of the things that this thing has, kind of one of the hurdles that it has to get over was, okay, who are we going to use? And the fact that it's only 2 issues. That really is another thing that kind of surprised me. I was expecting, okay, we got to get ourselves a good plot going here just so we can have these 2 teams do something and maybe be at odds with each other. We read Killer Instinct and we had 2 prologues and then 4 issues. Was that what it was? Was a total of 6 or 5? Yeah. I can't remember.
Came out those were hotter books off the top. They came out at a better time in the market. And also, if the sole purpose of publishing this is to wrap up Strykeforce and make what money you can on it, 4 issues isn't the best way to go at that time. It's better to do 2 issues at $3 a pop and hope you get 50,000, 60,000 sales out of each of them at the time. Now that would be great sales, and then you'll make your money back in a little money, but 4 issues might have been pushing it because, as we all know, sales diminish as
I mean, part of me wonders, was this going to be Strykeforce 15 and 16? And then they're like, for sales, let's make it.
Oh,
that's a great point, too. It could have been like that. I wonder, too, this is the special they're having where Cyber Force and Strykeforce meet, and it has to wrap up Strykeforce. But if they do a special where they fight earlier, does Strykeforce wrap up this soon? Now, I don't think Cyber Force ends in 97 or whatever, so it's not like it was going to go on in perpetuity. But I think that the people who are into this would have wanted them to meet sooner, and you could have gotten some interest going if you could have made that happen around issue 6 or 7 of Strykeforce, some kind of crossover, some kind of fight, and then maybe this stretches out to 2 years. Again, I'm not sitting here and be like, we'd still be reading Strykeforce today, because I don't think that's the case. But I do think that if you give this to people sooner, you don't have to wrap it up at this point. It's just an educated guess. It's just a hypothesis. This
is basically the only Top Cow stuff it looks like Gerber ever wrote, were those codename Strykeforce 10 through 14 and these 2 issues.
Well, I wonder why that is. He wrote some stuff for Wildstorm, I want to say, too.
Cybernary and Deathblow.
So I know at this time, has Tom Mason, have you ever heard the Tom Mason story? I talked about it on the blog where Steve Gerber was getting so late that when he came into the office, they would pay him by the day for whatever he wrote that day. So that may be part of the problem, too, where it's like, you're late. Like we talk about the artist being late, but Steve Gerber could have an issue with being late, too, and that could have been part of it. But yeah,
that's right. If we're talking about with Sludge, it was 93 and 94, and this is 95. So
yeah, so maybe that's part of it, too, is just we can't give him any more work because it took too long to get this work.
I am currently just double checking Cyblade's backstory, to find out if she graduated from the University of Kentucky or if she is actually just a big fan.
If you have graduated to be a big fan, there's a reason they call it Big Blue Nation.
Okay, all right.
I'm not kidding. There's UK fans everywhere. They spread out. It wasn't uncommon for them until recently to play a quote-unquote home game in Atlanta once a year. Their basketball team. Their football teams usually and also ran, although it's been competitive the last few years. They put together a solid program that's going to win 8 or 9 programs a year, which is probably the best you can do at UK. Now, obviously, Matthew Price going to the SEC, you expect Oklahoma to beat Kentucky every year, right?
Well, I hope so, but it's still the younger Stoops coaching them, right? So
yeah, it is. So
I mean,
family feud, bro.
Good coaching line.
Yeah, no, he's got that program to a really good spot. So. But yeah, I wonder. I thought the same thing when I saw this. Is she just into the Wildcats, or is it a rib on?
Is it a rib? Yes. And I wonder. I sent Chris that, because shout out to Chris. He's a big UK fan, or Big Blue Nation, whatever.
Like whatever. I'm sorry that you're a Browns fan, so that you know every Browns fan personally.
Yes,
I apologize about
that's the
that.
truth.
Other people have fan bases that go farther than your neighborhood.
Don't believe it. Just looking at this real quick, she was born in somewhere near France. Doesn't mean she couldn't have come over here and went to school and all that, but yeah, I'm starting to think it was probably a rib.
Maybe one of the artists just liked Kentucky at the time, because I think this is right when Patino's showing up and they're going to win the national title. And when did this come out?
95.
95. So I think they win the national title in around 96 or 97. Could just be that the artist liked it a lot. I couldn't find any information about it. They kept this top secret. Stryker apparently threatened him. I'll slap you with all three of my arms.
That's some slapping. The art in this, you could tell that they started playing a little bit with some digital stuff right there at the beginning when you're looking at Raisin Guy. There is something going on with his head, and there you could tell that they're using and feeling a little bit more comfortable with using some of those digital tools in order to enhance the art.
They have computer embellishers now.
Right. That's what I'm going with. Computer embellishers. It's right there in that on the inside cover. Computer color embellishers.
Embellishers.
My bad. Color embellishers.
But there's computer colorists though, right?
There's absolutely computer.
Yeah.
There's like 10 of those, and every single one. I think they actually built the program. They were given the credits in the back of the book anyway. But yeah, as far as the art goes, it's not Silvestri, but hey, I'm right there with you guys. I think it did what it was supposed to do. You know, all I wanted to see was Killraiser and Ripclaw go at it. Didn't get it. Yeah. They really don't get much of a feature even fighting the main villains here. I think you see at one point where he runs into the cops and Ripclaw shreds the gun, which was pretty cool. But most of it is when they get to the alien homeworld, I think they've been captured. Ripclaw has.
Yeah, all of those folks were, yeah. Black Anvil, Ripclaw,
and it's Stryker running around. Stryker's running around saving them, and then you get Super Skrull at the end, and it's hard not to divorce yourself from. And
then you get bye greasy Stryker. Here he goes.
Yeah,
I think that's my biggest problem with the book is when I see Cyber Force, I want that big over the top fight, and that fight doesn't really happen.
No. But yeah, I don't really have many other notes on here. I enjoyed reading the end of this chapter for Strykeforce, and also Stryker's got to be a part of Cyber Force, and he's got to be a focus on that. I would love to know. I don't know off the top of my head. I would love to see if any of these guys show back up in the Cyber Force book. Maybe they do.
They do a new book called Strykeforce around like 2004. Like Jay Faber writes it.
Yeah, he wrote some Teen Titans, and I like a lot of his stuff.
I haven't read that or whatever, but I know it's loosely connected at least.
This is probably not the best Steve Gerber stuff you can read, and it's probably not the best Cyber Force stuff you can read, but I think if you look at it as what it is, it's at least interesting if you're interested in the era.
Yeah.
For sure.
So there's better stuff out there, but if you really wanted to know how Codename Strykeforce wrapped up quickly, I think is the answer.
Right.
Sometimes you're like, man, I need closure. No one needs closure here. This is all we are done.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's what I would say. I think the best two things about it, you find out how Stryker walks, and also if you were a Codename Strykeforce fan, it's good that you got your guys wrapped up, because I feel bad anytime that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I guess you've got the image artist kind of on a certain arc, Steve Gerber's career on a different arc, and this is just the place where they intersect. And so it's kind of interesting for that reason.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Good point.
All right, let's get into plugs. I think we've done it here.
Okay, so yeah, we are speedingbulletcomics.com or sbcomics.com, or if you're in Norman, we're at 614 North Porter Avenue, and we've got an eBay store, which I think is Speeding Bullet Comics also. So, hey, we'd love to sell you some comics. Come by and see us if you're around.
All right, very good. Dean Compton, tell them about the Unspoken Decade.
All right, well, we're celebrating 10 years of the Unspoken Decade this year, which is wild to think about. Pretty soon, I'm going to have to teach this thing how to drive, right? We're getting close. But no, 10 years, wow, what an honor. We're having a lot of fun at the Facebook page. You go to the unspokendecade.com. There's a lot of great articles there for you. Look for us, Unspoken Decade. We're up to 22,000 followers, and we thank each and every one of you except for that one, and you know who you are.
I'm going to go ahead and give you my plugs. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Unspoken Issues podcast right here on the Source Material Comics feed, and we appreciate that. We're part of the W2Mnet.com. We have this show right here. It's based on 90s comics. We love them. We talk about them. So if you can go back into the archive, we've got over 100 episodes of the Unspoken Issues podcast. And then we have the Source Material Comics podcast, where we just do comics of any era. It's kind of like a book club for comics there, too. We have a good time. And Snap Material. If you like Marvel Snap, Me and Evan Bevins are usually hanging out playing Marvel Snap. Once a month, you can hear us talk about that. So that's the mobile card game Marvel Snap. With that being said, that up there is Dean Compton. Right there is Matthew Price. I'm Jesse Starker. Ladies and gentlemen, have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. Unspoken Issues is part of the UnspokenDecade.com, the home for 90s comics, blogs, and podcasts. Unspoken Issues also has a Facebook group you can join if you are interested. Just search the Unspoken Issues podcast and request to join. All of this would not be possible without W2Mnet.com, so make sure to seek them out for more podcasts. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please feel free to share, and we look forward to entertaining you again soon.
From the sky, shapeshifters on a hunt for a traitor they despise. Sharon saved the earth, but now she hides. Portal's mind control, they come to take her back. Cyber Force and Strykeforce,